Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aho Sukham tea. So for those of you who don't know, Aho Sukham means, oh what bliss, oh what joy. Sort of thing you feel after a really nice meditation. And it is what drives the life of a monk or a nun. There's nothing else which really matters, nothing else which is as delicious and as beautiful as the freedom of the mind. And for all these years we've been practicing here, me the most, the longest, that we always think, what are we doing this for? What is the purpose? What keeps a person? This is what Ajahn asked me to talk about. What keeps a person in the monastic life for such a long time? Yeah, you can just do all of the busyness, building monasteries, and just doing all of these writing books, and becoming a famous teacher, and many people coming along and saying, oh, just what a great service you've given to me. But that doesn't really make it all that important, simply because you could do that in the world. There's something else which is really, really, really important. Even though that you may be guiding others and creating more faith, more confidence in other people, and you may be healing some of their problems. It's only the real big problem, that's the only thing which is worth healing, which is, again, stopping people from getting reborn, to make more enlightened beings in this world. That's the only thing which is really important. Because everything else, making people a little bit happier, chanting for them so they're not so sick, getting rid of some of those worldly problems which people have, yeah, they're useful, someone has to do that. But that's not the real purpose. You know, why you're a monk and why you stay as a monk and why you're going to be a happy, successful monk or nun. There's something much more important than that. And this is, what I have been trying to focus on for just this retreat. This is not just to be able to live a life with more peace and happiness. This is trying to end the cycle of rebirth, which is also really getting rid of all the obstacles to your peace and happiness. It just goes both ways. I had my 65th birthday on Sunday, and I had told people it's about time I retired. I retired a long time ago, as many of you know. Retired. In other words, give up this world and find something which is far more useful. And perhaps, the key to that, the key to Aho Sukham, is what I used to call the two types of desire. The two types of wanting. The desire, not really desires. Let's call them the two types of freedom, which is the freedom of desire to get what you want, when you want it, how you want it, to get your own way, which is just having all of your desires, all the ways you think things should be, all the improvements, all the ways you want, the things you want, to get what you want. And that's what most people struggle with to achieve in their life. To struggle to get the freedom of their desires. So all their plans, all of their great goals and their all of the things they want to achieve, that they can get those things. But they count for absolutely nothing. All of those struggles and strivings which I have done over the years, they count for zip, nothing. It's not worth it. But what is really worth it is what we call the freedom from desire. We just got no desires left. There's nothing there. There's no wanting at all. And that's the two ways which people can live this life. Trying to strengthen their ability to get what they want. Craving, wanting, getting frustrated when someone gets in your way and getting angry at them so they don't get in your way again. It's all just like control freak stuff. Always thinking that wanting is the way to happiness. Always thinking that if we could only not just get rid of wanting, but if we could only make our wanting more wise, more kind, more skillful, and then we'd get happiness through pursuing wanting, pursuing the strengthening of our will, through following desires, only this time make the desires smart desires, which is one of the reasons I often tell in my lay talks that many people come to listen to Buddhist talks, not to actually to let go of desires, but to make the desires more skillful, so they can get what they want without frustration, and also that what they get is going to be a cause of happiness for themselves and others. And they miss the whole point of what Buddhism is. It's not to improve your will, make it stronger, make it smarter. It's actually to let it go. To let it go to the point that the will stops, that there's no more desires, there's peace, there's stillness, there's freedom. Because after a while, when you see the Dhamma, you understand what's going on. It's this desire which is the problem. It is the itch, the mange on the dog, which was one of, again, Ajahn Chah's famous and favourite stories. Always driving the dog crazy, never being able to get rid of the mange, the itch. And that's what drives us crazy. Always, first of all, wanting this, and when we get that, we want something else, and then we want something else. All for really good causes, and we're convinced it is important. But that's the way of the world. That's how other people act. And it's a crazy world. But when we come across the Dhamma, there's something which is different, which is totally against the way other people do things. And here we're not trying to improve anything. Here we're trying to let go of stuff. We're not trying to improve ourselves, because that is endless. And what are you trying to improve anyway? We're trying to let go of this whole perception of a self. We're trying to just find some peace in our world. Maybe fortunate, I do recall some of the reasons why I became a monk, why I just left that world in which I was quite successful, was sometimes just lunch hours of all places. This is actually true. Just some memories which come up when you give a talk. Getting some money together to go travelling, having a job in the city and going for lunch in Hyde Park, by Serpentine Lake. It must have been, that was in Hyde Park, it must have been an omen about where I was going to end up in Serpentine. And sitting really peacefully, not even eating my lunch, just sitting there so peacefully, just allowing all of the thoughts to disappear and just to become quite silent, and having these moments of freedom from desire, peace, stillness. And that was very delightful. Or other times of finding solitude, either in the mountains in Scotland or even in Norway. I went up there once and just had a beautiful time. Just sitting on top of a mountain somewhere, just doing nothing, allowing the mind to become still. That was important for me, because that gave what the Buddha calls a taste of freedom. Didn't really know much about Buddhism at the time, about meditation, but what you did know, that there was something very appealing in that taste of freedom, where you could sit down and just not want anything in the whole world. And you felt so content, so fulfilled. Nothing was missing. Everything you wanted was there. If someone came and asked you, do you need anything? You'd say, no, I have everything. And it was very solid. And it wasn't depending on other people being around. It wasn't depending upon you having money. It wasn't depending on material things at all. It was very much a mental freedom, because it was the desires in the mind which had just subsided for a while and gave you this opportunity of peace. And that was maybe something which subconsciously made a huge impression on me, which later on, when you became a monk, it was probably one of the reasons I wanted to become a monk, to live such a simple life so you could get that freedom from desires. And of course, as you all know, living in monastery here, or those of you who are visiting, it's very difficult to find those moments where you can be free, because so much is demanded of you to survive in this world. You have to work, you have to cook, you have to do your duties, you have to talk to people after lunch. You have all these duties, you have to fill out or organise people's census forms. Poor Ajahn Brahmali, what is a monk doing having to do that? But that's our duties and jobs, we have to do that. But fortunately, that we arrange a monastery such as this so that even though you have these duties, they are minimized to the max. Is it 34 years, I think, now I've been in this monastery? 33 or 34 years. So a lot of hard work has gone into this monastery. Why? What am I doing this for? What did I do this for? I could have just gone into a quiet mountain in Thailand somewhere and been a hermit and not ordained bhikkhunis and just not have any problems and difficulties whatsoever. But you do this to be able to share that taste of freedom, which you've enjoyed. To be able to make a place where people can just sit in their hut in the afternoon and do absolutely nothing. Not plan, not dwell upon the past, to allow their mind to be free from desire. And even though, keep talking about this, encouraging this, keep on making that the heart of the teachings, which I share with you, still it's amazing how people can make business. Even if there's nothing to do, still they can do something. There's always something to improve. That's one of the reasons why when you live in a monastery or you live in a hut or you just live in a room, there's always something to improve and something to be done. But we try and put that off until after the rains retreat is finished. At least have some time where we do absolutely nothing. Minimal duties, minimal activity, minimal emails, minimal writing, to have some freedom. Why? And it's not just because we're just following like sheep. That's what we're supposed to do. I'm a monk, therefore I'm supposed to meditate. I'm a nun, therefore I'm supposed to be quiet. I'm a lay person in this monastery, therefore I should be just not talking too much. You don't do that because you have to. You do that because that's the way the mind inclines. It seeks out freedom. And one of those freedoms is solitude. The freedom to be alone in this world. And for someone like me who sometimes has to face thousands of people expecting a talk, a whole line of people wanting my signature and photograph, a whole group of people just waiting to talk to me after lunch, to find solitude is such a beautiful freedom. Because in solitude, nothing is expecting of me. I don't have to work. All I do is just stop and be still. Solitude, where you don't have to interact with people. And later on, solitude in your room, with your eyes closed, when you don't have to interact with the world. In the fire sermon, always saying that the whole world is on fire. All the senses, sense objects, sense consciousness, even the mind is on fire. What does that really mean? You just have to sit with your eyes closed and see this burning, raging fire licking at your consciousness. And that's what it really means. It's not cool at all, it's not peaceful, it's just so agitated. And to find that seclusion, that solitude, where the six senses, including the mind, can calm down and cool off, to become cool, still, peaceful, free of irritations. And that is so incredibly beautiful. That's why you say, Aho, Sukham, peace at last. And that peace at last, Aho Sukham, when you experience freedom from desires, that's the heart of all meditation. Freedom from desires, letting go of craving, wanting, will, doing stuff. That freedom, when you taste that freedom, that is a taste of enlightenment. It is a taste of what the real joys are. It is, what upasana means, the stillness, the calmness, the quietness. We give monks these names so they can live up to them one day. We don't give them the name because that's what they're like at the beginning. That's what they're going to be like at the end. Just calm and peaceful and perfectly still, not wanting anything in this world. Upasana, just a perfectly still lake with no waves or ripples on the surface at all, like a night with no wind rustling the trees, where everything is calm and stops. Because when things are calm and stop, that is when we get things disappearing. The calmness, the stillness, when you lack desires, it's all the desires and wanting make the mind move. And it doesn't just make the mind move, it takes away the happiness. We want so as to be happy. But perversely, every time we want something, it's taking away our happiness, it's destroying it. And what happens when our happiness gets destroyed? We just have more wants. We just try and increase our cravings and desires out of frustration. And of course, happiness goes further and further away from us, which is one of the reasons if you are having a hard time, embrace it, be at peace with it, don't fight it. Instead of trying to get rid of it, embrace it. Because at least you're making peace with these things. And if you make peace with these things, rather than wanting more stuff, you find the difficulties start to fade, and your mind moves towards the happiness, which all the wanting promised you, but never ever delivers. The peace, the stillness, the letting go, the freedom from desires, that is what produces the peace and happiness. And this is one of the things one discovers. This is insight, this is wisdom. your own direct experience showing you what real peace and happiness is. Real peace and happiness, it has a different taste than the happinesses of the world. Getting a really good cup of sweet tea with condensed milk or really nice fish and chips, that's just yucky compared to the peace and bliss of when you want nothing at all. The mind is still and peaceful. And then it's self-sufficient. It doesn't need anything else. The happiness it has is more than enough to keep it really peaceful. And that is why things vanish and the happiness increases. Really increases. Why the aho sukham, oh what bliss and oh what joy, to know that you don't need anything in the world, no sensory desires, not even a fit and healthy body. It's one of the great things to experiment and find out that you can be really sick, weak. Okay, that time I told people I had scrub typhus. And that was really sick. Okay, just for the guests here, because sometimes my talks get a bit too serious. It's nice to have a bit of levity. 1975, I think it was. Yeah, it's about right. In Ubon Hospital. There's only one hospital in Ubon at the time. That's northeast Thailand. That was the whoops of Thailand at the time. And in Ubon Hospital, they just had one monk's ward, about 5 or 6 beds on either side for any monk who happened to get sick. I had scrub typhus. No one knew what it was. It was just a fever. They thought it was typhoid because that's what it was like. And I was there for 4 or 6 weeks or something. And because they didn't know what it was like, that is when you used to have this nurse would come morning and afternoon to shoot you up with antibiotics. And this nurse, I'm not quite sure what your nurses were like when you were in hospital last week, Venerable Mudito, but I'm sure they weren't like my nurse, who was about 40 or 45 years of age, built like a water buffalo. Not petite or beautiful. And she had to be strong, because she'd come in with this old-fashioned hypodermic needle, which in those days, and this is absolutely true, they didn't have just one use. These were all reused many times. And so these one-use needles you have these days are so sharp you hardly feel it. But in those days they were really blunt. So that's one of the reasons why she was built like a water buffalo. She had to be strong to inject you. In fact, you wouldn't really honestly call it injection. It was stabbing. Clutching it in her fist, lifting up her arm and bang, right in your backside. Twice a day for about 5 or 6 weeks. And I did have strong loving kindness, but not for her. Even I had my limits. I hated that nurse. She really hurt. Those were the days when that was terrible. That was really like third world country, and the whoop-whoops of third world country. And you're supposed to be tough, but it was tough being tough. But there, after 4 or 5 weeks of that, nothing working, feeling really, really sick. That's real sickness, almost close to death. And then just deciding one day I'd had enough. Let's meditate. And it's amazing. Even though you're in the middle of a fever, absolutely zero energy, you can still get into the deepest of meditations. It's absolutely brilliant. Just to know that you can do that it can be done. And how do you do that? Just stop struggling, stop fighting, stop trying to run away from stuff. Just stop wanting, stop craving, stop desiring, freedom from desire. Be happy to be with this really painful, sick, weak, yucky body, real yucky. And it worked, which was amazing, that you can work like that. So you can come out afterwards and say, Aho Sukham, Aho Sukham. And that really was, double Aho Sukham. Simply because you had a very, very beautiful meditation. And it was even amplified because of where you came from a really aching and sick, terrible body. So it can be done. And it's all it really needs. Say, well, you are special, you can do it. You don't do it. You don't use your willpower or effort. It's a freedom from desires. It's a wisdom. It's a different way of perceiving, a different way of looking at stuff. Just change your attitude. Just change the way you're looking at it. Change your perspective. That's what you do. And then it works. And that's all it is, seeing things from a totally different angle. That's why it's so hard to do. If it was willpower, you could train yourself stronger and stronger and more energy and more effort. If it was willpower, then many more people would be able to do this. But it's not willpower at all. You're just wasting time on that direction. It's just turning around and seeing things in a different way. Getting the wisdom. And how do you do that? You just keep on listening to the incredible teachings of the Buddha. Again and again, it keeps telling you, Ajahn keeps telling me, just sit under the mango tree, just do nothing, and the mango will fall. Just the leaf on a tree, it's only the wind blowing makes it move. Stop the wind and nothing moves at all. All these amazing teachings, which, they're inspiring, but you don't understand a word of them, because you don't do it. And so after a while, we learn how to totally let go. And the whole monastic path is teaching us how to let go. It's actually encouraging us. The whole thing. When you put on robes, you just can't do what you want to do. It's so frustrating. I have to ask the senior monk for everything. I have to ask the Sangha, and the Sangha is so stupid. Why can't they see what's right? Why do I have to keep on asking the Sangha for permission to do this and to do that? Why do I have to just have all these rules which I have to keep? Why? It's so frustrating. Yes, that's its purpose. To frustrate your desires and your will and your wanting. And sometimes it's like that. Why sometimes people, they decide to become novices because they get a bit more freedom. Or they say, no, just be lay people because these rules are a bit too constraining. That's their purpose. So that you have to let go. You've got hardly any choice. The whole tradition is just too strong and too heavy. It's just you've got to eventually just let go and just go with it. Because what happens then? But they say, well, what if things are going really, really wrong? I said, well, look, if you want to change the world, fine. But if you want to become enlightened, if you want to find some peace in this life, this tradition is good enough, it's kind enough, it's open enough. It's open enough and kind enough for the purpose of letting go, for finding some freedom, finding some peace. Finding this beautiful joy when the mind lets go and you're just there and the peace gets stronger by the minute and the joy gets more and more intense. And there's no joy greater than the joy of peace, stillness. And that's what you want to share with others, nothing else. And the only way you can share that is by experiencing it first. Really experiencing it. And the way you know that it's real joy and peace is because there's no sense of self involved in there at all. There's no sense of achievement or pride or look at me, I'm so peaceful, I'm more peaceful than you are, na 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 na, my joy is stronger than yours, ah. That type of sort of stuff never arises if it's really pure peace and pure joy. There's no sort of comparison, because the reason is that when it comes from letting go, from peace, from stillness, from freedom from desire, when you don't want anything, something else happens, and that is your whole sense of who you are fades away. A person makes a sense of self from all of their achievements. That's what defines you. All of what you've done and achieved, all your skill-based, that's what you think you are. Your sense of self comes from everything you've done. And if you stop doing stuff, all of that just fades away, disappears, until you're not there anymore. Which is one of the wonderful things of freedom. Freedom from desires. It's also freedom from a self, from a me, from a mine. Where there is a mine, there will be a me. Where there's a me, there is a mine. When there is a mine, there is wanting. When there is no wanting, there's no mine. You're free. It just vanishes. And aho Sukham, to have no identity left. No one to protect. No one to seek praise. No one to have to be affirmed and to be recognized, to be loved, to be cared for. All of that totally vanished. Totally free of this sense of self, this me, with all the problems which comes up with having a self. It's so endless dukkha once there's a person there. If there's a person there, you're always worrying about what people are thinking about you, what they're saying about you, what they mean by what they say, or what they didn't mean by what they didn't do. Oh, it just gets endless with identities. But when you actually vanish and disappear, there's no one left there at all. Aho Sukham. Oh, what joy, freedom at last. The sense of self with all its wanting, causing you so much suffering in this world. So because the way of monastic life, our identities start to vanish. You're just a nobody when you become a monk. Oh, what fun to be a no one. You're not having a career in monastic life, working it all out, I'll start as an anagarika, and then I'll become a novice, and then I'll become a monk, and after 5 years I'll become a teacher, after 10 years I'll get my own monastery, after 20 years I will get you can have all my disciples, and I'll start my own Buddhist society, the Buddhist Society of Oslo. But I don't know where you want to go. So that idea of like a career path is just so crazy. And of course, none of you really buy into that. Instead, you see how more you can actually vanish and disappear. How more that you're just not here. And I always say that the best monks in a monastery are the ones who just float through the dining room, hardly say a word, float out again. You hardly ever notice they're there. They're just vanishing. There, always look at those and say, okay, there's the good monks. The ones who make all the noise, the make all the, please excuse me, the projects, they're the ones who think, they've got a long way to go. Yeah, we do need the projects, need stuff to be done, but what we really need more than more monasteries is more monks and more nuns. Real nuns, real monks and nuns. Monks and nuns who have aho Sukham, who are blissed out from time to time. Blissed out just doing nothing. not doing a project, not wanting stuff, not talking, just sitting there, just eyes just bliss, deep within themselves, having the time of their life, time of their lives, enjoying just the bliss of stillness. They're vanishing, disappearing. It's called viraga, not dispassion. That's a stupid translation, please excuse me. But things vanishing away, disappearing. This world is more and more people, more and more things, always building more stuff, always making more stuff, always doing more stupid things. Right? Was it the second person, Ainsley and Barbara, even they're old. They were talking about Pokemon, whatever that is. And if they know about Pokemon, my goodness, the world is crazy. It's mad. It's supposed to be some game which is driving people crazy all over the world. Okay, it's enough that Sam Tan knows about it, but the old people, what are people doing that for? I mean, that's totally opposite to the Dhamma. That really is Mara. Poking Mara, that's what it is. Just getting people to do stupid things for no real reason whatsoever, instead of just being still and vanishing, not going anywhere. So when a person understands the Dhamma and actually tastes it, the most important thing is to experience it, because all the words, all of the sutras, all of the thoughts you have, it's nothing, absolutely nothing compared to an experience of the taste of freedom, where everything stops. Nothing to do, nothing missing, no problems left, no questions to ask, nowhere to go. You don't want to go anywhere. Nothing to do. You're just peaceful, still, free from this terrible curse which drives this world around, which drives the life, which drives you from life to life. What we call like the house builder, will. House builder, you have been seen. Your rafters are uprooted, as it says in the Dhammapada somewhere. Or somewhere it says that. And wherever it says that, it's so beautiful to actually to see that it's been stopped, at least temporarily, if you can't do it for absolute full time. You're peaceful, taste of freedom. And that really is the highest joy. You can actually, one of the highest joys, way up there anyway. That's why they call it ho Sukham. Just that's more pleasure than the best sex. Because it's a long time since I remember that. The highest pleasures, winning a gold medal in the Olympic Games are on now. More pleasure than, I was like that fellow years ago, trying to recover from heroin. And he said, more pleasure than heroin. And he said, I never thought I'd ever say that. The highest pleasures, beautiful, peaceful, still pleasure, pure, because it's unadulterated by any material things. Everything vanishing, disappearing, and just peace, stillness, not a desire, contentment. And that's powerful, that's beautiful. I know some of you sometimes said, you get into some meditations, you're still, but there's no oomph to it. Just hang in there. If there's no oomph to it, there's no beautiful aho sukhang joy, it is because you're wanting something somewhere. There's a want there. And maybe you're not mindful enough yet, smart enough to see those wants which destroy and block the happiness coming up. But have a look around there, stay around there, check it out. Sooner or later you'll see all this wanting which stops you being free. And once that is spotted, just like the monk sees Mara, I know you, and then Mara just runs away. Oh, the nun knows me, the meditator knows me. It's just through knowing, through seeing, that the whole problem vanishes. almost immediately. Actually, usually is immediately. The block is taken away, and just the happiness starts to flow. The peace, the stillness, not wanting anything in the whole world, just free. And the feeling of freedom. Not just bodily freedom, that's usually the freedom of desires, or the freedom from pain, the freedom from sickness. That's almost impossible. But the freedom from wanting, yeah, you can do that. At any time, no matter how old, no matter how sick, no matter how close to death, the freedom from wanting is always possible. And when you do it, it's just bliss. And actually just a lot of the pain and difficulties just vanish with it. The bliss of freedom from desires. And that bliss again starts to allow things to vanish. Freedom from desires means freedom from a sense of self. You're weakening this ego, this me, this mine, this terrible curse of a personality. And you notice how that causes you so much difficulty in life. People praise you, people blame you. And why? I don't know why. It's just craziness. Just like, every monk in this monastery, every nun, every layman, laywoman, how can you judge them? They're all coming from different places, they're doing their best. They're trying, they're failing, they're making progress, some slow progress, some fast progress. It's just people. You can't sort of judge anybody. At least I can't, and I've been here longest. I should be the one who's the best judge of character, but I can't judge anybody. There's no one there. There's just these empty processes rolling along. Yeah, you teach them this way, they don't listen. They teach them another way, they still don't listen. But some of it gets in, and eventually, something happens. I trust in the Dhamma, it works. But then after a while, they find beautiful peace and stillness. Aho Sukham. And that gives this monastic life meaning. Having beautiful temples, having incredible halls and inspiring Buddha statues, having relics all over the place like this monastery has. We've got amazing how many Buddha relics we've got and other relics, but they don't really cut it as much as Aho Sukham cuts it. The joy and the peace of freedom. Now that is a relic of the Buddha. That's how we know it was a Buddha. Relics in little reliquaries, little glass stupas. Yeah, they may be, they may not be. But when you taste the Dhamma, that is beyond doubt that is a relic of the Buddha. That is a teaching of the Buddha. The peace, the joy, the freedom, the taste of it is unmistakable. And when you start tasting that again and again and again, that gives this life meaning. It's not just about just getting by in life and having a free ride where you don't have to do much work. Because monastic life is a free ride for many people. You can get by and get fed and get housed and have a decent life and get respect without doing very much in monastic life, but that's not its real purpose. Nor is the purpose, again, to just preserve old teachings, to do more translations, print more books. That's not really the purpose. It's to live the teachings, to realize them, and to cry with the realization, Aho Sukham, bliss. This is what the Buddha was there for, why he taught freedom, real freedom, once and for all. That's gorgeous, obviously. And that's there for you. And of course, you just keep following the instructions. You've got no choice. Eventually you do follow the instructions. It's just brainwashing, it's conditioning. Stick around long enough and it's nothing to do with you. It's just changing the way your 5 khandhas work, associating with Aryans. This is just the 5 khandhas just alter, and they just pick up on the peace, the bliss, the inspiration, the truth, the power of it. It just gets in there, and you can't resist it. And eventually you just sit there and just let go. You've got no choice. It just happens. It's just how it works. And then you sit there in your heart, oh, Sukham, wow, oh, this is really great. And you enjoy that, and you deserve that, and you share that, because it's inspirational. Many people, they would come and tell me when I was a young monk, these days, no one can get enlightened. The best we can do, maybe become a stream winner if we're lucky. Or maybe we can just, keep the tradition going, be fields of merit for other people. Well, that was just a bit really disappointing. The fact that, you can't get enlightened these days, why not? You can't get jhana these days, why not? Maybe it's because of my upbringing, Westerner, we always say, why not? Women can't become monks, why not? And of course we always do that, and it's good we do that. Because it's true. There's no reason why not. So, when you do that why not, you give it a try, and my goodness, the Buddha was absolutely accurate and correct. As long as you practice the Eightfold Path, you get enlightened. So that's what happens. You get the stages of enlightenment, you get jhanas, you get bliss, you get freedom. And it's great when you look at the suttas, and then especially the Therigatha, the verses of the enlightened elders, monks and nuns. Read them. And you see, they thought they could never get enlightened too. And then it happened for them. Just this process which goes on century after century, country, gender, doesn't really matter at all. All these people are just listening to the Dhamma, being inspired, just going, having the solitude, having their huts, the rooms, the opportunity, the support, you can do this. You're just getting in there and it just happens. And eventually you just follow the instructions, you've got no choice, it just happens. You don't do it. Sit there and one day you just bliss out. And when you do bliss out, wow, that is sweet. Sweetest thing you can ever have. Just get a few of those experiences, and that gives this monastic life meaning, this holy life meaning. There is something incredible here. Or you go and share it with others, so that inspires them. Yeah, there's something real, not just some fake sort of enlightenment or some happiness. Maybe after you die you get it, or maybe another range retreat next year you maybe get it, but never really immediate, really felt, lived right in front of you, right inside of you. So it's there. And when that happens, wow, this is the coolest. This is bliss. Aho, Sukham. And I like that word because that's the tradition of how sort of in the time of the Buddha, when people were blissing out in meditation, insights and freedom, whatever it is, how they'd always keep on saying this, Aho, Sukham. Oh, what bliss. And when that monk, he was saying that, and people said, he's just remembering his old wives when he was still a layperson. People said, no, that's a monk who has actually got some really nice deep meditation or understanding some Dhamma. That is the real happiness of our monastic life. And that's far, far better than anything else. So if you can experience a little bit of that, or get some of the taste of it, or get inspired by other people describing that, then that will give you enough inspiration to keep going for years. That's what I got from being around someone like an Ajahn, someone who really could just bliss out and have this incredible happiness. You could see it, feel it, there's something different there, something real. something which was free, wasn't depending upon others, or depending upon stuff, depending upon health, depending upon being praised. Just totally free of all of that. So liberated, unshakable happiness. That's the sort of happiness which we're trying to describe. And that's what this monastic life is all about. That's why we're Buddhists, for the sake of happiness. Because that's why when you say, but this is all about suffering, suffering arising, suffering passing away. But I always was very taken by the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering, Nibbana, where the Buddha called it Paramang Sukham. Paramang, like the English word paramount, the highest, the ultimate happiness. That's what enlightenment is. Nibbana, the ultimate happiness. So yeah, you can talk about suffering, but the path to the end of suffering is getting closer and closer and closer to the ultimate happiness. So it should be aho sukham. It should be joy upon joy upon joy, bliss upon bliss upon bliss. And if you're getting more blissed out, you're on the path. You're getting more miserable, then you've lost something somewhere. And I've often said, I think I said it in the first talk, if you're getting more and more frustrated, it is because you've wanted something, you've missed it. When you don't want anything, how can you get frustrated? If there's no self, how can you get upset? So little by little, you follow this path, free from all desires. Just sitting there, unable to be blown around by any want, any desire, any ill will, aversion. They just can't even get close to you. Imagine that. And that is happiness. Wanting promises you happiness. When you get what you want, then I'll be happy. And that happiness never is reached. That is like my simile of the donkey chasing the carrot. Never catches the carrot. Wanting is the chasing. And of course, you know that simile, how it ends. The donkey stops. The carrot swings away and then swings back right into the donkey's mouth. Stopping wanting, the carrot of happiness swings towards you. And once it gets into your mouth, aho sukham, that is a sweet carrot. And that's how this whole thing works. So that is actually how and why we live this monastic life, for the sake of happiness and joy. So when you're in your hut, see if you just sit there, not wanting anything in this world, content, easily satisfied, not proud, me, not demanding in nature, as we chant in the Metta Sutta. Just sit there and just let the peace settle. Let the joy build. Let the happiness come. And just be one of those great monks, nuns, lay people who have understood and touched the Dhamma. Even the first jhana, the Buddha called it Sambodhi Sukham, the bliss of enlightenment. When I first saw that, wow. What do you mean? It's not enlightenment, but it's close enough. It's a freedom. Freedom from the body, freedom from the will. You're almost there. It's freedom. And that's why all these similes, like being born in this prison of the five senses. It's a prison, it's so hard to escape from them. And the jailer is the will, never allowing you to be still or peaceful, always making you do stuff. It's your will. That's your jailer, it's not you. And then one day you imagine to find just a way to overcome this will. Just to calm it down, sit peacefully, watching your breath. until there's nothing to do, until the will just falls asleep. And once the jailer has fallen asleep, then you can escape. Once the will has stopped, and the five senses, the walls vanish, and then you're free. Then your mind vanishes, and then you're really free. The end, the best, da-da-da. Aho, Sukham. It's enough. Sadhu, 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 anumodam. Aham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhan Bhagavatam Abhivade Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namassami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namah